She left me a note saying she had to find herself, then disappeared with $80,000 from our savings account. For an entire year, I heard nothing. Not a call, not a letter, not even a message through our kids. Then one day, a text showed up on my phone. "I've had my fun, now I'm ready to be a wife again." I stared at it for a while, but I didn't answer. And when she finally came knocking on my door, she was not prepared for the person who opened it. The color drained from her face so fast she looked like she had seen a ghost. My name is Daniel Mercer, though most people just call me Dan. I'm 50 years old, and up until last year, I honestly believed I had my life pretty well figured out. I had been married to Claire for years. We had 2 grown kids out there making lives of their own. I owned a business that, for the most part, ran without needing me every minute of the day. I had 4 high-end car wash locations spread across the county, and together they brought in around $15,000 a month in passive income. My managers handled the regular operations, so I did not have to be on site constantly. Most mornings I would wake up, check the numbers on my phone, and maybe drive by one of the locations if I felt like getting out. After that, I would spend my time doing projects around the house, or talking with Claire about where we might go on our next trip. Claire worked as a real estate agent, and I will give credit where it is due. She was good at what she did. She knew how to talk to people, how to close deals, and how to make herself known in the right rooms. She was always going to networking events, open houses, client dinners, and whatever else came with that life. I was proud of her for working hard. I really was. She would come home late smelling like wine, perfume, and finger food from some showing or office event. I would ask her how everything went, and she would give me a tired kiss on the cheek. "Exhausting," she would say. Then she would head upstairs to take a shower. I never pushed her for more than that. I never thought I had a reason to. Why would I? The morning I found the note was a Tuesday in March. There was no sit-down conversation, no warning, no fight the night before. Just a piece of paper sitting on the kitchen counter beside the coffee maker. I can still remember every word because they burned themselves into my mind. "I need to find myself again. Don't wait for me. I'm sorry." That was all she left me. No phone call, no tearful goodbye, no explanation that made any kind of sense, no attempt to save the marriage or even talk about what was wrong. Just a few cold words and a weak apology. Her car was missing from the driveway. Half of her clothes were gone from the closet. And when I checked our joint savings account, $80,000 had disappeared with her. I stood there in my bathrobe with that note in my hand, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. Those first few weeks nearly broke me. I called her over and over again. I must have dialed her number 100 times, maybe more. Every single call went straight to voicemail. I drove by her real estate office, hoping someone there could tell me something. One of her co-workers said Claire had taken an indefinite leave of absence. That was all I got. Our kids, Ethan and Maya, were no help either. At least, not the kind I needed. I could tell they knew more than they were saying. Every time I asked whether they had heard from their mother, they avoided looking me in the eye. Ethan was the worst about it. He got defensive almost immediately. "She's going through something, Dad," he told me. "Just give her space." The way he said it made me feel like I was the one doing something wrong, like I was the problem, like my own existence had somehow been suffocating her. I found out much later that both of them had been in contact with her. Not only that, they had been sending her money, helping pay for whatever new life she was chasing while I stayed behind, trying to keep the remains of our family from falling apart. About 3 months after Claire left, I stopped counting the days. I stopped grabbing my phone every few minutes, hoping there would finally be a message from her. I stopped expecting an explanation that was never coming. Little by little, I started moving again. I would not exactly call it living, but I was functioning. I woke up, I showered, I checked the business reports. I found something around the house to repair or clean or distract myself with. The lawn still needed to be cut every week. The gutters still needed cleaning. There was a loose board in the fence I kept telling myself I would replace, though I never seemed to get around to it. That was around the time I first noticed Nora. She had moved into the rental house across the street sometime in late May. Back then, I was not paying much attention to the neighborhood. I was too buried in my own thoughts to care who came and went. But one morning, I was out front watering the flower beds Claire used to take care of, and I saw a woman in scrubs climbing out of an old Honda Civic. She looked worn out in a way I recognized. Not just sleepy, but deeply tired, like she had been carrying a long night on her shoulders. Her dark hair was pulled back into a ponytail. She had a coffee cup in one hand and her keys in the other. She looked over at me and gave a small wave. I nodded back, but I did not try to start a conversation. I was not in the mood to talk to anybody. Her name, I later learned, was Nora Whitaker. She worked as an ICU nurse at County Memorial, usually pulling 12-hour shifts that bounced between days and nights. She was 35, had never been married, and lived by herself in a house that seemed too large for one person. In that way, I guess we had something in common. At first, we barely spoke. Mostly, it was just a quick wave here and there when we happened to cross paths. She would be heading out to work while I was checking the mailbox. Sometimes I would be hauling the trash cans to the curb right as she was pulling into her driveway after a shift. That was about the extent of it at first. A wave, a nod, a little bit of small-town politeness between two people who happened to live across the street from each other. Nothing more than that. Then, one Saturday morning, I was out in my driveway changing the oil in my truck when Nora came walking over with a plate in her hands. It was covered in foil, and she carried it like she was not entirely sure whether she should be bringing it over or not. "You look like a man who could use some homemade cookies," she said. Her voice was friendly, but not pushy. Warm, but not fake. She set the plate down on my workbench. "Chocolate chip," she added. "I should warn you, though, they're a little burned on the bottom." I wiped my hands on an old rag and looked at her. She was not acting like she wanted something from me. She was not trying to flirt, and she was not fishing for information about my personal life. She was just being kind in a regular, neighborly way. And for some reason, that hit me harder than I expected. "Thanks," I said. My voice came out rougher than I meant it to. "I'm Dan." "I know," she said with a small smile. "Your name is on the mailbox. I'm Nora." "Yeah," I said, trying to sound a little lighter than I felt. "The scrubs kind of gave away what you do for a living." She laughed, and it was the first real laugh I had heard in my yard in months. "Very observant," she said. "Do you work from home?" "Sort of. I own a few car washes. My managers handle most of the day-to-day stuff." I hesitated, then added, "Leaves me with plenty of time to overthink everything." Nora looked at me for a second. Not like she felt sorry for me. More like she understood exactly what I meant. "Well," she said, "if you ever need to overthink out loud, I'm usually home on Wednesday mornings. I make decent coffee." She did not stand there waiting for me to accept or reject the invitation. She just turned around and walked back across the street like she had said what she came to say. And there I was, standing beside my truck with greasy hands, a plate of slightly burned cookies, and the strangest feeling that maybe my life had not stopped moving completely. I ate 3 of those cookies before noon. Burned bottoms or not, they tasted perfect to me. When Wednesday morning rolled around, I found myself walking across the street to Nora's house without much of a plan. All I had was that loose invitation and the realization that I had spent too many mornings alone inside my own head. The coffee she made was strong enough to take paint off a wall. She served it in mismatched mugs that looked like they had all come from different thrift stores. "So," Nora said, settling into an old armchair across from me, "what's your story, Dan?" She did not tiptoe around it. She did not pretend she was asking about the weather. She asked straight out. I appreciated that more than I expected. "My wife left almost 4 months ago," I said. The words came out easier than I thought they would. "She left a note on the counter, took half our savings, and disappeared. No explanation. Nothing. Just decided she needed to find herself." Nora nodded slowly, keeping her face calm. "That's rough," she said. "Have you heard from her at all?" Not a word. I wrapped both hands around the mug and took a long drink of coffee that was way too bitter. Our kids know more than they're telling me. I can feel it. But they're protecting her, keeping her secrets. I shook my head. My son, Ethan, acts like I'm the bad guy just for asking questions. And my daughter, Maya, just cries and tells me her mom needed space. Space from what? Nora asked. That, I said, is the million-dollar question. I set the mug down on the side table and leaned back. 26 years of marriage, and somehow I was suffocating her without ever knowing it. Nora stayed quiet for a moment. Then she said something I was not expecting. My dad died last year, she said. Cancer. I was his nurse near the end. Took care of him at home while he was in hospice. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. Your brother, she continued, saying my name carefully, was one of my patients 3 years ago. Different hospital, different unit, but I remember him. You came to visit him every day during his last week. Something changed in the room when she said that. I stared at her while the pieces slowly started coming together in my mind. You knew who I was when you moved in, I said. I recognized you, Nora admitted. Yes, but I did not bring it up because I was not sure if you would remember me. We only passed each other a few times in the halls. I'm sorry I did not say anything sooner. I sat with that for a moment. Part of me expected to feel angry or fooled, but I did not. There was no betrayal in it. Just one more strange connection life had decided to throw in front of me. Why tell me now? I asked. Because you deserve honesty, she said simply. And because I do not want to start a friendship with something important left unsaid. She paused, then added, Your brother was a good man, and you showed up for him when it mattered. That says a lot about the kind of man you are. I nodded, but my throat tightened before I could answer. He was the better Mercer brother, I said. No question about that. I doubt that, Nora said with a small smile. But you can keep telling yourself that if it makes you feel better. We sat there for a while after that, drinking coffee that was honestly terrible. And somehow, by the time I walked back across the street, the morning did not feel quite as heavy as it had when I first stepped through her door. Then July came in hot, like somebody had opened the door to a furnace, and the car washes started having their best month yet. Summer was good for the car wash business. People were getting ready for road trips, beach weekends, family vacations, and they all wanted their vehicles looking clean before they hit the highway. My managers were putting in extra hours just to keep up with the rush. I should have been locked in on the numbers. Peak season was the time to squeeze the most profit out of every location and make sure everything was running as smoothly as possible. But instead of thinking only about the business, I kept catching myself looking forward to Wednesday mornings with Nora. Neither of us really planned for it to become a routine. It just happened that way. She would work her Tuesday night shift into Wednesday morning, come home around 7, sleep until about noon, and then I would show up at her place with pastries from the bakery downtown. We would sit out on her back porch and talk for hours. Sometimes we talked about serious things. Sometimes we talked about nothing important at all. That was part of what made it easy. She told me about the patients who stayed with her after her shift was over. Not physically, but in her mind. She talked about how hard it was to fight for people, do everything right, and still watch them fade away. I told her about Ethan's phone calls, which were getting colder and more hostile every time we spoke. I told her about Maya too, and the way her guilt showed up in long silences instead of honest answers. Your kids are stuck in a hard place, Nora said one afternoon. She had her bare feet propped on the porch railing and a glass of iced tea in her hand. They love both of you. But your wife probably told the story in a way that makes you look like the problem. What kind of story could she possibly tell? I asked. I could hear the frustration in my own voice, but I could not stop it. I worked hard. I gave our family a good life. I never cheated on her. I never screamed at her. I never put my hands on her. So what exactly did I do that was so terrible? Nora looked out across the yard for a moment before answering. Maybe that was the problem, she said quietly. You were stable, predictable, safe. Some people mistake that for boring. That one landed harder than I wanted to admit, because deep down, I knew there was probably some truth in it. Claire used to tell people I was her rock. At the time, I thought that was a compliment, but somewhere along the way, I guess being a rock stopped meaning something she could lean on and started meaning something she wanted to escape from. One evening near the end of July, I was over at Nora's place replacing a few rotten boards on her back deck when she came outside carrying 2 beers. She had been off work for 3 straight days, finally catching up on sleep, and she looked more rested than I had ever seen her. "You know," she said, handing me one of the bottles, "you do not have to fix everything around my house. I can hire somebody." "I know," I said. I pressed my boot against the new board to test how solid it was. But I like working with my hands, keeps my mind from running in circles. Nora sat down on the steps beside my toolbox. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Go ahead. Are you doing all of this because you're trying to move forward?" she asked. "Or because part of you is still waiting for her to come back?" I stopped what I was doing and looked at her. 2 months ago, I probably would have said I was waiting, I admitted. Now, I don't really know. I'm just trying to figure out what happens next. "That's fair," Nora said. She took a sip of her beer, then looked over at me. "For what it's worth, I think whatever comes next might actually be better than what came before." That night after I went home, I stood in my bedroom and looked at the pictures sitting on the dresser. There was one of me and Claire on our wedding day. We were young, smiling, and stupid enough to believe love would be enough to solve anything life threw at us. I picked up that photo and stared at it for a while. Then I opened a drawer and put it inside. I did not do it out of anger. I did it because I was finally starting to accept the truth. Some chapters end whether you are ready for them to end or not. It happened on a Tuesday night in late March, almost exactly 1 year after Claire had walked out of my life. I was in the garage organizing tools, mostly just giving my hands something to do. Nora was inside making dinner because she had decided I needed to eat something besides sandwiches, frozen meals, and takeout. Over the last few months, she and I had grown comfortable with each other in a way that felt quiet and natural. Comfortable enough that she had a toothbrush in my bathroom, comfortable enough that I had a spare key to her place for emergencies. We had not put a name on it. We had not sat down and made anything official. There were no labels, no big declarations, no pressure. Just 2 people who had been hurt by life in different ways and somehow found something good in each other. Then my phone buzzed on the workbench. The number was unknown, but the message preview made my stomach drop before I even opened it all the way. "I've had my fun. Now I'm ready to be a wife again. Can we talk?" That was it. No hello, no apology, no explanation. Just those words, like she had taken a long vacation and decided it was time to come home now. I stared at the screen until it went black. Then I tapped it awake and read the message again. A full year of silence, and that was what she chose to say. Nora appeared in the doorway of the garage, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. "Dinner's almost ready," she said. "Are you coming in or should I bring a plate out here?" I did not say anything. I just handed her the phone. She read the message, and I watched her face change. First confusion, then understanding, and finally something harder underneath it all. "Are you going to answer her?" Nora asked. Her voice was careful, neutral. "No," I said, and even though I did not feel as steady as I sounded, the word came out certain. "There's nothing to say to a message like that," I said. Nora handed my phone back to me and gave me a look that told me she already knew this was not over. "She's going to try again," she warned. "People like that do not handle silence very well." She was right. Over the next 3 days, the messages kept coming. Each one sounded more desperate than the last, and somehow more manipulative too. "I made a mistake. Please, Dan. I was lost. I didn't know what I was doing. The kids miss having us together." That last one made my blood boil. The kids. As if Ethan had not been sending her money behind my back. As if Maya had not known exactly where her mother was the whole time, while I sat at home worrying, grieving, and trying to rebuild a life she had blown apart without warning. Claire was using them like a shield, the same way she had probably been using them all year. I did not answer a single message. Instead, I finally did something I should have done months earlier. I called a lawyer, not just some general attorney either. I found one who handled divorce cases involving abandonment, hidden assets, and marital money being taken without consent. That consultation opened my eyes. As it turned out, I was in a stronger position than I had realized. The $80,000 she took, the full year of abandonment, the complete silence, all of it mattered. Legally, those things were not just painful. They were useful. My attorney was a sharp woman named Helen Cho, and she did not waste time softening the truth. "Mr. Mercer," she said, sliding a folder of paperwork across her desk, "if your wife wants to reconcile, she can start by speaking through legal channels. That is where this needs to go now." Then she leaned back slightly and added, "Based on what you've told me, I would also recommend we begin gathering evidence of any extramarital relationships. If there was an affair, it could strengthen your position considerably." "How exactly do I do that?" I asked. "A private investigator," Helen said. "I have someone I work with regularly. He is discreet, thorough, and quick. If there is something to find, he will find it." I signed the retainer agreement that same afternoon. I did not do it because I wanted revenge. I did it because I needed protection. Nora was starting to matter to me in ways I was not fully ready to admit. That scared me, but it also made me realize I had something worth protecting. I could not let Claire wander back into my life and destroy whatever Nora and I were slowly building. I also could not let her make some sudden claim on my money, my business, or the life I had been forced to rebuild without her. When I got back home, Nora was sitting on my front porch, still wearing her scrubs from work. The second she saw me, she stood up and searched my face. "I hired a lawyer," I told her, "and a private investigator." She waited, saying nothing. "If Claire wants back in," I continued, "she's going to learn real fast that she waited too long." Nora did not offer some big speech. She just stepped forward, wrapped her arms around me and held on, and I let myself hold her back. In that moment, she felt like the only steady thing in a world that kept shifting under my feet. That night, I turned my phone all the way off and put it in a drawer. Whatever Claire had to say from that point forward, she could say it to my attorney. I was finished being her backup plan. I was done being her safety net. The knock came early on a Saturday morning, about 2 weeks after that first text message. I was in the kitchen making coffee. Nora was upstairs in the shower. The night before, we had been digging through old boxes in my attic, deciding what I should keep and what I needed to finally throw away. There was something almost symbolic about it, clearing out pieces of the past to make room for whatever life was becoming. Then came the knocking. Not polite knocking either. It was firm, impatient, and demanding. I knew who it was before I even looked through the window. Claire was standing on my front porch. She looked like she had stepped straight out of a magazine. Her hair was perfect, her makeup was flawless, and her outfit probably cost more than some people paid in rent. She was tan, rested, put together. Honestly, she looked like she had spent the last year at a luxury resort, not like a woman who had abandoned her husband and shattered a family. I did not open the door right away. I just stood there looking at her. This was the woman I had spent 26 years of my life with, and to my own surprise, I felt nothing. No anger, no longing, no need to ask where she had been, no burning curiosity about what she had done. Just an empty, cold space where all those feelings used to be. Upstairs, the shower shut off. I heard Nora moving around in the bedroom. Claire knocked again, harder this time. "Daniel, I know you're in there," she called through the door. "Your truck is in the driveway. Please, just talk to me." I walked over to the door, but I did not open it. "You need to leave, Claire," I said. "There's nothing for us to talk about." "I made a mistake," she said from the other side. Her voice shifted into that pleading tone I knew too well, the one she used when she wanted me to give in. I was confused. I needed time to figure myself out. But I'm ready now. I want to come home. This is not your home anymore, I said. My voice stayed flat, calm, and factual. You left. You took $80,000 from our savings, and then you disappeared for a year without saying a single word. You do not get to show back up just because you finally decided you're ready, I said. Daniel, please, Claire begged from the other side of the door. I love you. I have always loved you. I just lost my way for a while. I almost laughed when she said that. Lost her way. Like she had accidentally taken a wrong turn somewhere, instead of making a clear choice to walk out on the life we had built together. That was when I heard footsteps behind me. Nora was coming down the stairs. She appeared at the top landing wearing one of my old t-shirts, her hair still damp from the shower. She stopped when she saw me standing at the door, and it only took her a second to understand what was happening. Do you want me to answer it? She asked quietly. I stepped back from the door. Yeah, I said. I think that would be perfect. Nora walked past me and opened the door before I had the chance to rethink it. The second Claire saw her, that carefully practiced expression on her face fell apart. She saw Nora standing in my doorway, inside my house, wearing my shirt. Then her eyes dropped lower. They landed on Nora's stomach, where the small curve was just starting to show. 5 months along. We had found out about the pregnancy 3 weeks earlier, right around the same time Claire had started sending those desperate messages. Funny thing about timing. Sometimes it says everything. Claire's face went completely white. The color drained from her so fast it looked like someone had pulled a plug. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. But nothing came out. Can I help you? Nora asked. Her voice was polite, but firm. She was not cruel. She was not smug. She was just standing there, calm and steady, making it clear she was not going anywhere. Who are you? Claire finally asked. Her voice was barely louder than a whisper. I'm Nora, she said simply, and you need to leave. Daniel has already made it clear he does not want to talk to you. Claire tried to look past her, searching for me, but I had already turned away. I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a cup of coffee, and listened as Nora calmly shut the door and locked it. Through the window, I saw Claire standing on the porch. She stayed there for a long moment, looking like the world had shifted under her feet, and she had no idea how to stand on it anymore. All that perfect composure she had walked in with was gone. Finally, she turned and headed back toward her car. Her steps were uneven, almost shaky, like she still could not believe what had just happened. A moment later, Nora came into the kitchen and stood beside me. You okay? She asked. I looked down at my coffee, then back toward the front of the house. Yeah, I said, and I was surprised to realize it was true. I really am. Ethan showed up 2 days after Claire's failed visit, and he did not come by himself. His wife, Rachel, was with him, and from the hard set of her jaw, I could tell she was the one pushing this whole thing forward. They found me in the driveway washing one of my own vehicles, something I like to do on Sunday mornings when I needed to clear my head. We need to talk, Dad, Ethan said. His voice was tight, full of anger he was barely holding back. He was 27 years old, but in that moment, he sounded like a teenager ready to defend his mother no matter what the truth was. I turned off the hose and faced both of them. About what? About you replacing Mom like she never even existed, Ethan snapped. About you moving some stranger into her house and getting her pregnant. What the hell are you thinking? First of all, I said, keeping my voice calm but firm, this is my house. Your mother walked out of it more than a year ago. I looked him straight in the eye. Second, Nora is not a stranger, and she is not replacing anyone. She and I are building something new together, something your mother chose to destroy. She made a mistake, Rachel cut in. Her voice was sharp and judgmental. People make mistakes. That does not mean you just throw away a marriage. Your mother did not make a mistake, I said, still looking at Ethan. She made choices. She chose to leave. She chose to take $80,000 from our savings. She chose to disappear for a full year without a single word. I paused, letting that settle. Those are not mistakes, son. Those are decisions. You do not know what she was going through, Ethan argued. She was struggling with getting older. She felt invisible. He shook his head like I was the one who had failed her. She needed support, not judgment. I could feel my patience starting to wear thin. I was her husband for 26 years, I said. I gave her support in every way I knew how. I worked hard to give our family a good life. I never cheated on her. I never lied to her. I never abandoned her. My voice stayed steady, but there was steel underneath it now. If she was struggling, she could have talked to me. What she did instead was run off with money that did not belong only to her. Money that did not belong to her? Rachel laughed bitterly. That was community property. She had every right to take it. Not like that, I said. Not without telling me she was leaving. Not by emptying accounts in the middle of the night like a thief. And definitely not while you and your sister were helping pay for her little adventure, I added. Ethan's face turned red. She's our mother, he said. We were helping her get back on her feet. She was already on her feet, I said. She just decided she didn't want those feet standing beside me anymore. I let out a slow breath and looked at him. And you know what? I've made peace with that. I've moved on. What I am not going to accept is you two coming to my house and trying to guilt me into taking back a woman who did not even respect me enough to have a conversation before blowing up our marriage. Rachel's eyes narrowed. That baby does not change anything, she said coldly. She gestured toward the house, where Nora could be seen through the kitchen window. Legally, you are still married to Ethan's mother. This is adultery, and it is going to matter when this gets to divorce court. You might be surprised what my lawyer has to say about that, I replied. I kept my voice even. Turns out, when someone abandons a marriage for over a year, that gives the other spouse quite a bit of legal standing. Then I looked at Ethan. And if we are going to talk about adultery, you may want to ask your mother what she was doing for the last year. My private investigator has very detailed reports. The color drained from Ethan's face. You hired a private investigator? I protected myself, I said simply. Something I should have done a long time ago. I picked up the hose again but did not turn it on. Now, if the two of you are done trying to intimidate me on my own property, I have work to do. This is not over, Dad, Ethan said, but his voice had lost some of the strength it had when he first arrived. Mom is talking to her own lawyer. You are not going to just get away with cutting her out of everything. I'm not cutting her out of anything she did not already cut herself out of, I said. She left. I'm just making it official. I pointed toward the street. Now get off my property before I call the police and report you for trespassing. They left after that. Rachel practically dragged Ethan back to their car, though he kept glancing over his shoulder like he still wanted to say something. I stood there and watched them drive away. Then I went inside and found Nora sitting at the kitchen table with both hands wrapped around a cup of tea. I heard most of that, she said quietly. I nodded and sat down across from her. Are you okay? She asked. I'm tired, I admitted. And once I started saying it, I realized how true it was. I'm tired of defending myself for surviving what she did to me. I'm tired of being treated like the villain because I did not spend the rest of my life waiting by the door for her to come back. Nora reached across the table and took my hand. Your son is being manipulated by his wife, she said. Sooner or later, he will see that. Maybe, I said. But right now, he is choosing them over me, and I have to find a way to be okay with that. That afternoon, I called Helen and told her about Ethan showing up, along with everything Rachel had said. Helen did not sound surprised. She told me everything was still moving the way it should, and that Claire's lawyer had not filed any counterclaims yet. She's stalling, Helen explained. She is hoping you will get tired, Cave, and agree to mediation on her terms. Then her voice sharpened a little. Do not do that. We have the stronger position and she knows it. 3 weeks after Ethan came to my house ready for war, Maya was the one who reached out. She did not come at me with accusations. She did not make demands. She just sent one simple text. Can we meet for coffee? Just the two of us. I met her at a small cafe downtown on a cold April morning. When I walked in, she was already there, sitting in a corner booth with her hands wrapped around a paper cup. She looked nervous, guilty, and much younger than 25. Maya worked as an elementary school teacher, and in our family, she had always been the one trying to keep the peace. "Thanks for coming, Dad," she said when I slid into the booth across from her. "Of course," I told her. "You're my daughter. I will always make time for you." Her eyes filled with tears almost immediately. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I should have reached out sooner. I should have stood up for you when Ethan was being awful." "You were in a tough position," I said, and I meant it, though hearing her apologize meant more to me than she probably understood. Maya shook her head. "No," she said. "I was a coward." She wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. "Mom called me right after she saw Nora at the house. She was hysterical. She kept saying you betrayed her, that you had moved on so fast." Maya's voice grew firmer, and I just sat there listening when I should have told her the truth. "What truth?" I asked quietly. "That she has no right to be upset," Maya said. There was anger in her voice now, but it was not aimed at me. "She left you, Dad. She walked out without a word and disappeared for more than a year. What did she think was going to happen? That you were supposed to freeze your entire life and wait until she decided she was done playing around?" I felt something loosen in my chest, something I had been carrying for months without realizing how heavy it was. "You knew where she was," I said. Maya looked down at the table. "I knew some of it," she admitted, wiping her eyes again. "She called me a few times," Maya said. "She told me she was in California and that she was trying to figure herself out. She never said anything about another man, but Ethan told me later that she had been with someone." Maya looked down at her coffee, and when that relationship fell apart, suddenly she wanted to come home, like you were just sitting there as her backup plan. "That's exactly what I was," I said quietly. Maya's face tightened with shame. "I hate that I sent her money," she said. "Ethan and I both did. And we did not tell you because deep down, we knew it was wrong. We were helping her hurt you, Dad. I am so sorry." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Maya, you love your mother. I understand that. I am not asking you to pick sides. But I am picking," she said. "I am choosing to tell you the truth." She took a breath, like what she was about to say still made her sick. "Last week, I heard Mom talking on the phone with her friend Diane. She was laughing about you, Dad. Laughing. She called you predictable and boring." I stayed still. Maya kept going. "She said you were a reliable paycheck, but she needed excitement. She said she needed to feel young again. And when Diane asked why she wanted to come back now, Mom said, 'Because stability looks better when you're broke and alone.'" Those words hit me harder than I expected. Not because they broke my heart. By then, my heart had already been broken and put back together in a different shape. They hurt because they confirmed what I had been afraid to say out loud. Claire had not really loved me for the man I was. She had loved what I gave her: the security, the comfort, the steady life, the money, the house, the feeling that she would never have to worry because I would always be there holding everything together. And when that stopped being exciting enough for her, she traded it in for adventure. Then, when the adventure went bad and left her broke and alone, she wanted her safety net back. "That must have been hard for you to hear," I said. "It made me sick," Maya replied. Her voice shook, but she did not look away. "And it made me realize something. Nora is not stealing you from Mom. Mom threw you away. Nora just had the sense to see what Mom was too selfish to value." We stayed in that cafe for another hour. Maya talked more honestly with me than she had in years. She told me about her own struggles, about how everything with her mother had made her question the way she handled relationships. She told me she had ended things with her boyfriend of 3 years because she finally realized she had been settling for a man who did not respect her the way she deserved. "You taught me that, Dad," she said. I looked at her, surprised. "Me?" She nodded. Watching you refuse to take Mom back. Watching you choose peace and happiness instead of doing what everyone expected you to do. That took guts. When we hugged goodbye in the parking lot, I felt like I had gotten my daughter back. Not the little girl who used to run through my house with pigtails and scraped knees, but the grown woman standing in front of me now. An adult who respected me enough to tell me the truth, even when the truth was ugly. The divorce hearing was scheduled for a cold morning in November, 8 months after Claire had first tried to come back. Helen had walked me through what to expect, step by step. Still, nothing really prepares you for sitting across a courtroom from someone you spent half your life loving. Claire came in looking expensive, but tired. Her clothes were perfect. Her makeup was done. Her hair was styled. But there was something worn down around her eyes that no amount of polish could hide. Her lawyer, Martin Caldwell, sat beside her, shuffling through papers like he was preparing for battle. He had a reputation for protecting wealthy spouses, and I could see why Claire had hired him. I sat on the other side with Helen. Nora sat beside me, even though she was 8 months pregnant and probably should have been at home with her feet up. That morning, I had told her she did not need to come. She had looked at me like the matter was already settled. "I want to be there," she said. "You stood by me. I'm standing by you." The judge was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s named Eleanor Price. She reviewed the file for a few moments before looking up at both sides. "This appears to be a fairly straightforward abandonment case," Judge Price said. "Mrs. Mercer, you left the marital home in March of last year and had no contact with your husband for 12 months. Is that correct?" Claire's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client was going through a mental health crisis at the time. She needed space to recover and regain clarity. She is now prepared to reconcile and attend counseling with her husband." Judge Price turned her attention to me. "Mr. Mercer, do you wish to reconcile with your wife?" I stood. "No, Your Honor," I said. "I have moved on with my life. I am expecting a child with my partner, and I want this marriage legally dissolved." Caldwell stood again before the room had even settled. "Your Honor, my client is still entitled to half of the marital assets, including Mr. Mercer's business interests and retirement accounts." Helen rose smoothly, calm as ever. "Your Honor, we have evidence showing that Mrs. Mercer withdrew $80,000 from joint accounts without Mr. Mercer's knowledge or consent immediately before abandoning the marriage." She placed a document on the table in front of her. "We also have documented evidence of multiple extramarital affairs over the last 3 years, including a year-long relationship with a man named Gavin Rhodes, which Mrs. Mercer maintained while she was still living in the marital home." I watched the color drain from Claire's face. The private investigator had done exactly what Helen said he would do. Gavin was not some random man she met after leaving me. He was a real estate investor she had been seeing at work conferences for years before she finally walked out and ran to him. Judge Price looked over the file. "These affairs are documented?" she asked. "Extensively, Your Honor," Helen replied. She handed over a thick folder. "We have hotel receipts, recovered text messages from cloud storage, and witness statements from colleagues who knew about the relationship." The judge reviewed everything in silence. Claire's lawyer tried to object, but Judge Price raised one hand and stopped him cold. "Mrs. Mercer," the judge said, "is this information accurate?" Claire looked at her lawyer. Then she looked at me. Then she dropped her eyes to her hands. "I made mistakes," she said quietly. Judge Price's expression did not soften. "These are not mistakes, Mrs. Mercer. These are deliberate choices made repeatedly over a long period of time." She closed the folder. "I am granting the divorce on the grounds of abandonment and adultery. Mr. Mercer will retain full ownership of his business assets and the primary residence. Mrs. Mercer will receive 15% of the marital assets accumulated during the marriage, minus the $80,000 she withdrew without consent. All retirement accounts will remain with Mr. Mercer, as he was the primary contributor." "Your Honor, that is not fair," Caldwell protested. Judge Price looked at him sharply. "Fair would be your client returning the money she took and apologizing for wasting this court's time." Then she looked back down at the papers. The divorce is granted. We are done here. Walking out of that courtroom with Nora's hand in mine felt like stepping out of a cage I had been locked inside for years. Claire tried to catch my eye in the hallway. I did not stop. I did not look at her. There was nothing left for us to say. When we reached the parking lot, Nora looked over at me. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Free," I said, and I meant it. For the first time in more than a year, I feel completely free. That afternoon, I called Helen and asked her to draft a new will. Everything would go to Nora and our daughter. Ethan would receive nothing unless he came around, and even then, I wanted anything meant for future grandchildren placed in a trust. No direct access to my assets. No easy way for Rachel to get her hands on what I had built. Maya, on the other hand, would receive a substantial inheritance. Not because I loved her more than Ethan, but because she had chosen honesty. She had chosen family over blind loyalty. She had done the hard thing when it mattered. It was not about revenge. It was about protecting the people who had stood beside me and making sure the right hands carried on what I had worked for. Our daughter, Lily Rose Mercer, was born on a Tuesday morning in late December. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, a full head of dark hair, and her mother's eyes. I held her in that hospital room while Nora slept, completely worn out from labor, and something deep inside my chest seemed to settle into place. This was what family was supposed to feel like. Not obligation, not tradition, not staying with someone just because people expected you to. Family was connection. It was love. It was choosing each other every day and meaning it. Maya came to visit that afternoon with flowers and a stuffed elephant she had picked out herself. She cried the moment she held her baby sister. Then she started telling Lily all about how she was going to be the best big sister in the world. "I never thought I'd have a baby sister," Maya said, carefully supporting Lily's head. "This is the best gift, Dad." "You're going to be an amazing sister," I told her. "Lily is lucky to have you." Ethan did not come. He did not call. He did not even send a text. Rachel posted something on social media about betrayal and broken families, and Maya showed it to me. But for once, I did not let it bother me. Ethan would either figure things out one day, or he would not. I could not control that. What I could control was showing up for the family that had chosen me, the same way I had chosen them. We brought Lily home to a house that felt warm and full of light. Nora had painted the nursery a soft yellow. The neighbors had thrown us a small baby shower and brought practical gifts like diapers, blankets, and baby clothes. The whole community seemed to welcome us with open arms. And for the first time in a long time, everything felt right. 10 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Claire at the grocery store. She was alone, pushing a cart with only a few basic items inside. She looked older, smaller somehow, like life had taken something from her that she did not know how to get back. "Daniel," she said when she saw me. Lily was strapped to my chest in her carrier. "Claire," I replied. My voice was calm, neutral. "She's beautiful," Claire said, her voice catching slightly. "Your daughter." "Thank you," I said. "I heard you and Nora got married last month," she said. "Congratulations." We did. It had been simple, just immediate family and a few close friends in our backyard. Maya had been Nora's maid of honor. Claire stood there like she wanted to say more, but I did not give her the chance. Lily started fussing, so I adjusted her carrier and took a small step back. "I need to get going," I said. "Take care of yourself, Claire." Then I walked away without looking back. There was no anger left in me, no bitterness, no ache, just indifference. Claire had become someone I used to know, and that was all she would ever be again. That evening, I sat on the back porch with Nora while Lily slept in her bassinet between us. The car wash business was doing better than ever. I had promoted 2 of my best managers into partner positions and gave them ownership stakes, which made them even more invested in making the location succeed. It gave me more passive income, less stress, and more time to be home where I actually wanted to be. Nora rested her hand over mine. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. I looked out over the yard, then down at our sleeping daughter. "I'm thinking about how everything had to fall apart before it could come together the right way," I said. Nora listened quietly. "If Claire had not left," I continued, "I never would have found you. I never would have had Lily. And I never would have realized I was settling for being someone's reliable option instead of someone's first choice." Nora squeezed my hand. "You are my first choice," she said firmly. "Every single day." I looked at her and smiled. "And you're mine." Lily made a tiny sound in her sleep, and we both looked down at her. Then we smiled at the same time. This was it. This was the life I was supposed to have. Not the life I had planned, not the life I expected, but the life I had fought for, earned, and chosen with a clear mind and an open heart. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing in disguise, because it forces you to rebuild. And if you do it right, you do not just become who you were before, you become stronger,